Good evening, everyone, and it is Sunday evening, and that means one thing: it's time for another live episode of the Big Bear Podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Big Bark. This is the podcast that is barking mad about your dog. So last week we had a fantastic show with All I Want for Christmas, and we're really getting into the Christmas spirit now this week. And today is a special episode. We're going to be talking all about why a dog is for life and not just for Christmas. So we did a similar episode last year. And joining me again this year to talk all about why a dog is for life and not just for Christmas is Dr. Tim Kirby from Petbond.ie. Tim, welcome back to the Big Bar. Glad to have you on.
Good evening, Dara. Delighted to be back again, Dara. I'm just kind of recalling this time last year we had a session as well, and it's amazing. It's been an eventful year, but my God, 12 months went fairly quickly, so it did.
Yeah, it's definitely been an eventful year. And you're right, it's gone very quickly, even though like with the various lockdowns we've had and like with all the like restrictions that have been in place, but yet the year has absolutely flown. And Tim, like I suppose this year has been a strange year in many ways for animal lovers, especially. Like when you look at like how many people this year have got dogs because of working from home.
Oh, without a shadow, Dara. I mean, it's literally, we often hear the phrase it's unprecedented, but literally this year it is in so many different senses. As you said, number one, the actual demand by the public for pets, we've never seen it before. And it's not just in Ireland, it's in the UK, it's in several other European countries as well. And even what I think, regardless, is that it's unprecedented in that sense, that certainly the lockdown and, as you say, people from working from home has certainly fueled that demand. But we were seeing a very, obvious trend prior to the COVID as well, Dara, where more people were still looking for pets. So this has really just accelerated and just magnified that appetite that the public have for pets. And, in many ways, it's a very good thing that our people, want to see pets. They want pets in their lives and their families' lives as well. And it's just the whole COVID has really, I suppose, created this huge mismatch between pets that are actually available from good sources and the actual soaring demand, which is absolutely, I think you'd rarely see such a mismatch in any other aspect of society, really, looking at what we've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose if you go back to early on this year as well, you did have, I suppose, while you had the pandemic, which is still going on, you also had a dog theft pandemic as well. That was crazy early on this year. I believe it's still going on. It's not as bad as it was, but that will just show like the demand, I suppose, that was there for dogs, that these criminal organizations were actually stealing dogs to sell them on because they knew the demand was there.
Yeah, and we did a session, Dara. I remember we discussed this earlier on in the year as well. And as you say, it was only 3 weeks ago, there was 30 dogs, close to 30 dogs found in Dublin again, with huge monetary value for the people that obviously had stolen them as well. So that has still gone on. Unfortunately, it looks like something that's still going to continue as well, because there is no sign of the actual demand for dogs actually declining, looking at all the forecasts and trends and looking into 2021 and beyond. But again, Dara, as you touched on there, it's the motivation of the people that are stealing the dogs. That's the most disturbing element, that they're seeing dogs just as a pure, commercial quantity, and a commodity in that sense for their own greed. And you know, something that we discussed before, like there's this reckless attitude to the pets themselves, but also to the people that actually are the rightful owners and guardians of those pets, which is even worse than the monetary consequences afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, I suppose like when you look at like coming up to Christmas now, Christmas is always a time where you see again a huge demand for pets as well. So this evening we're talking about why a dog is for life and not just for Christmas. And Tim, what would be your number one advice to people? Like obviously, adopt own shop will be something that we would be strongly live by here. What would be your own advice in the run up to Christmas for people who are thinking of getting that little Christmas puppy to have wrapped in a bow underneath the tree on Christmas morning for their kids or for their loved ones?
Yeah. What I would say, Dara, that no is certainly not the time to be getting a puppy. That's unequivocal. So, I say this every year to people that literally it's not a surrogate for a present because a puppy is going to be part of your family or part of your life for up to 15 years. Okay. So you can't just decide, well, in January or February or say 12 months later, well, I'm just sick of this now, like, look, it's like buying a clothes or something, you can just get rid of it. That's not the case here. So people need to bear that in mind. And what happens, obviously, in the lead up to Christmas, and particularly in a year like this, people get kind of caught up in the emotional side of it. Either spirits are high, enthusiasm goes above to a different bar, and then the sense of judgment and logic kind of goes out the window a little bit. And that's where you really need to come back to absolute logic, using your best judgment, but rationalization of what you're doing here. So to take on a puppy, you got to be aware of the time implications. To rear a puppy is not an easy thing to do. So you're going to have to change your lifestyle more than likely. If you're living with other people, you need to know how it's going to affect them. If you're house sharing or you're sharing an apartment, which is quite common these days as well, do you work from home? Can you actually commit the time, and working around your schedule to rear a puppy? And all the practicalities around that. You have to be aware of what your exercise requirements, the demand for, different feed types, perhaps your pet, the health requirements, the costs with that. So certainly, my advice is park it, take a breath, come back in the new year and see how you feel.
Yeah, 100% agree there. And you just mentioned the cost there. I know from the Q&A, just looking at the questions that we have here, one of the questions that I'm actually seeing here, and we'll ask it now. What is the average cost, Tim, of owning a dog on an annual basis?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work into this area, and we work out on average that Irish people are spending on average €1,300 per year
Wow.
maintaining a dog. So that's now there without even tailoring in, if you have an unexpected emergency where you have to go, for example, like I work as a vet and we get these emergencies and, that budget's gone out the window literally in one visit. If you get something like a huge, fracture repair or some surgery that's going to require quite extensive skill, time, and expertise in it. So that's what we're seeing on average is the minimum that most people are spending on their dog. So, it is a factor that you need to tailor in because if you don't, put that into the equation at the very outset, then you're going to be in a scenario where you're going to potentially deprive, your animal and your pet of things that it absolutely does require. So is there leeway within your lifestyle and your budget and your finances to allow for that? And if it's a case where you can't, then I would say it's just not a good time to get a pet. And that's where you got to be honest with yourself, because if you're not, later on down the line, you're putting yourself under pressure, you're going to put other people around you under pressure, and nobody's going to enjoy having a pet who's not going to be happy as well. So all the key elements there, they all need to join up because if they don't join up and they're not aligned, it's just not going to be a happy scenario for anyone. And then what we see is inevitably people start surrendering dogs to rescue centres, and that's where we really need to stop that cycle.
Yeah, definitely. And like just talking there, you mentioned like the unexpected emergencies. Like for us here, Millie, who you've probably seen pop her head in from time to time. Like Millie's often on our Facebook page. She's sound asleep on the chair now, but she underwent a massive operation about 2 or 3 years ago for pyometria in the room. Had to have the room removed, and she was very well looked after with the team out in Treaty Vets, who I believe you did a live video last week with there.
We did
And
our great
yeah,
session, yeah.
and like it was fantastic care. But people have to remember as well, like the cost that's involved in that. Like, yeah, for us, it was a very significant cost. Now we're lucky we know John and the team for years outside there. She was so well looked after, but she spent 2 weeks inside there, and like people need to consider like these things as well. They need to be on call as well for a vet just in case anything will go wrong as well.
Absolutely, Darren. It's not, they're not a convenience item. Like a pet will just slot into your life now because you've nothing else to do, or you're just working at home, so you've 2 hours in a day and you've nothing to do. Let's put it. They don't plug in just like a socket into a wall that puts on a light. That's not the case. This is a scenario where you work around them, and that's very, very important to realize. So as we said earlier, all the other areas of your time, your lifestyle as well, have to work around a puppy, because if you don't give them those key ingredients that they need very early on in their life, that's when they're likely to develop behavioral problems, down the line. This, I know you're studying all this as well yourself. They can develop into much, much bigger problems. And one of the key words I always use is prevention. If you can prevent those problems from occurring by making a very honest decision with yourself to say, now isn't actually a good time to get a puppy. You're doing the best thing for yourself, but also for the welfare of that puppy that you would have sourced. So, particularly at this time of the year, Dara, everybody should take a breath, come back in the new year, then decide, okay, is this what we want to do? And absolutely, we can help them then.
Definitely, and I suppose like you look at the training aspect that's involved as well. Just trying to teach basic commands to a puppy. I know we had a nightmare with Bruno, like even to get him to walk on a lead. But like for us, like I suppose when Millie came along, she calmed him down. But would you advise if you are getting a puppy, like that there should be, I suppose, if you have another dog in the house, that what would be your advice there? Like obviously some dogs will react differently, will react more like jealous to others. Whereas others then will be kind of, I suppose, a leader and like help the dog along.
Absolutely, Dara. One thing I often see is people where they're having problems with an existing dog, they decide, well, if I get another dog, it'll fix the problem. So there's this assumption that two is always going to be better than one problematic dog, and that's certainly not the case. So one thing I would say is, if you've got problems with your existing dog, you better find out what the problems are. Number one, identify them, and if you can't, identify them, get professional help in to help you identify what the problems are. Because again, there's invariably things you can do yourself, provided you get the information and the appropriate guidance as to how you should be treating it properly. Then once you've corrected that, absolutely you can consider getting another pet in. It's very important that if you are getting another pet in, that you introduce it slowly to the dog that's there. The whole hierarchy is going to change. Who's going to be dominant, who's submissive? Those guys are going to have to work it out between them. That's where the whole evolution and the psychology of dogs kicks in really. And no matter what we do as humans, we're not going to dictate that. So that's something that's going to actually happen between the dogs themselves. But certainly some dogs will want to be in their own. They're going to be very territorial. They just won't like somebody else, another dog I should say, coming in, taking over potentially their space. So again, judge your dog. How is it with other dogs? It'll give you a good idea whether it's irrational of you to get another pet, is what I would say as well. And the flip side of that is some dogs that are living on their own do very well with another pet. So again, start out with a pet that doesn't have issues, I think is the best bit of advice I could give to people, because otherwise you're potentially putting, I suppose, a sticky plaster on a problem, where you need to address any underlying problem first is the best thing.
And Tim, just speak of that, like what specific breeds, like what breeds now that you come across would be more prone to like illnesses like cancer, diabetes, any other illnesses that humans themselves are prone to? What breeds would be more prone to that than others?
Yeah, we see, Dara, with every breed. Every breed, I would say, is predisposed to something. We see, for example, traditionally West Highland Terriers and their skin is a notorious problem with them. You see Cavaliers, getting cardiac problems with their eyes and their ears. That's notorious. We know German Shepherds get a lot of spinal problems, hip dysplasia, very common as well. Labradors and their hips, elbows, they're, very, very common. So then you have the giant breeds getting problems like with their cruciate ligaments. So there's very rarely a breed that doesn't have something. And that's down to, some of it's genetic, some of it's down to just their anatomy and their physiology and just the way that these types of breeds live. There's very little you can do sometimes to prevent it. Now, sometimes it's very good for some of those conditions that you have health testing done on the parents, so you can screen for the likelihood that the puppies will inherit those conditions or not. That's something that we're encouraging more people to do as well, because that's very useful. Back to that word prevention again. So if you can prevent those conditions from occurring in the first place, again, it's better than treating them down the line. But with cancer, Daria, we're certainly seeing, I would say, certainly more of it across the boards. And literally, there's no breed that's immune to cancer, Daria. It's literally coming in different forms. The type of cancer with different breeds, like we would see, for example, in boxers, we would see more of a specific type of cancer than other types of cancer in that breed. But again, with all the other breeds, they would present with cancer as well. So it's one of those unfortunate conditions that literally doesn't discriminate between breeds, and it is quite prolific, actually.
Yeah, and look, I suppose like it is the same in humans. It doesn't discriminate either. That was actually, let me just see, the question on the breeds there actually came in from Sarah on our Slido. So I'm going to take another question here. And speaking of like specific breeds, like we're seeing so many puppy farms around, and like the breeding that's going on there is just crazy. There's one question in here, and it comes in from Danielle, and it is, how do you recognize if you're buying from a puppy mill or puppy farm? What are the signs to watch out for?
Yeah. I think, Darry, the unfortunate thing is we're seeing a lot of specific crossbreeds coming from those large commercial units. That's the first thing. So again, when that's one of the key indicators, I would say, particularly if you have a breeder that's breeding multiple breeds, that's a classical sign as well. Then when you actually go to visit the breeder, again, just the rule number one is always have a look around. That's what we would say. But the problem, I suppose, a lot of people encounter is there's no filters in place when they go through other websites and things. Anybody can get somebody else to put them up for them. There's so many issues there that we could spend 3 shows on it. But the classical signs are, number one, that you're sold a dog somewhere else, like at the side of the road, which is still going on. It's incredible. People are still accepting puppies in those situations. So that's the number one sign, that a breeder that isn't willing to let you to come around to their house to visit a puppy. Number two, not seeing the puppy or the litter with its mother. That's a classical sign that we see very often as well. Again, puppies that are, very timid. So when you approach them, they cower away. Puppies at that age should be confident. They should be a good size for their age as well. They should be in good health. And seeing puppies that are very submissive, puppies that just don't look healthy, that have a very heavy worm burden. We get this big pendulous abdomen, we call it, would be a classical sign of a puppy full of worms. We see puppies with lice even at that age. Poor health is often a very, very good indicator of a poor environment. And invariably, a poor environment is linked to a very poor owner and a poor breeder. So there are some of the classical signs that you would see. And the general personality, Dara, I always say that behind every pet, there's a person, and that person, if they're not being transparent with you, if they're not willing to give you as much information as you want, straight away, there should be alarm bells ringing, because this should be a happy and enjoyable experience, but it's the opposite invariably is what people are experiencing at the moment. So what I would say is, if in doubt, take a step back before you proceed.
Great answer, Tim. Thanks for that. Okay, let's take another question there. Okay, so this kind of goes back to the, I suppose, the cost of a dog. And would you advise getting pet insurance for a dog?
I personally would, Dara, because what I'm seeing is there's so many conditions that a pet could get. Okay. And what we're seeing is, just as we touched on earlier, there's more incidences of various conditions than there were previously. Then the follow-on question is, why is that? That is down to a lot of different factors. It's genetic, I think, some of it. Lifestyle of pets has changed as well. We're seeing more of certain acquired conditions than we did previously as well. Therefore, it's a risk assessment. So if the likelihood of those conditions, afflicting your pet is increasing, the risk accordingly increases as well. So with that is the likelihood that it's going to cost you more as a pet owner potentially with those conditions. And what we're seeing is, with pets where we need more diagnostics, we've got better tools at our disposal, like getting a CAT scan and an MRI in a dog nowadays is common practice, whereas before it was almost like 5-star gold-plated treatment that you wouldn't get bar in, some of the very few referral centres that we had in the country. So again, those diagnostics, you got digital x-rays, they cost quite a lot of money to run those procedures as well. And with conditions, say if you've got a severe fracture or if you've got a spinal condition, that's going to run into quite an expensive procedure. So again, to allow you to be able to treat your pet appropriately with the best condition, pet insurance does allow you that. Whereas if you don't have it, you're in a very difficult position because, some people, they're just financially not available to meet those requirements. And, money isn't an issue when it comes to how much you love your pet. So I would say take that barrier out of the way if you possibly can. And certainly pet insurance would help you.
Definitely, Tim. And like we have for Bruno, and Bruno had to have a small little kind of, again, on tree vets had to have a small little, it was a mole or something removed. There was a worry that it was cancerous. Thank God it wasn't. But the the pet insurance covered over, I think it was €300 out of the €400. So like there's only there always is an excess that people have to remember for the first instance of the claim. But like after that, like it's just so great to have it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take another question there. Okay, so here is one that comes in from John. John asks, what does an adoption fee usually include when adopting from a shelter?
Yeah. Most good rescues nowadays, Dara, they do ask for an adoption fee up front, and I think that's quite good. And the reason I say that is because, number one, the rescues have to cover their own costs, their running costs like lighting, heating, food, veterinary costs. So every dog that comes in there is microchipped, either before it comes in or before it leaves. It needs to be microchipped, which is an implant like the size of a grain of rice that goes under the skin. And that costs money to put it in. So the rescues incur that cost. Then you've got the cost of if it's a female, it's going to be spayed. A lot of male dogs are going to be castrated as well before they leave. That's quite an expensive procedure, which the rescues have to bring to a veterinary centre where they do the operation. Then they have to give treatment such as anti-inflammatories. They have to give an anaesthetic. They give an anti-inflammatory. You get various pain relief drugs going away. That all costs money on the rescue centre as well. And on top of that, you've got vaccinations. So some dogs come into rescue and they don't have any vaccines, so they need to get a course of 2 vaccinations. Other dogs need 1 vaccination, all on top of the other costs. I mean, you're running into a huge bill here already, Dara, before you look at, does the dog have any underlying medical condition that needs to be treated as well? So in fact, the rescue centres, even asking for a donation fee, are actually running a massive loss already on that, considering how much greater the actual cost has been in that dog, as opposed to the minimal cost they're really looking as a donation. So what I always say to people is that's the bare minimum that a rescue centre would have invested in that dog. And, they're more than entitled to ask for that because, with so many pets going into rescue centres and the cost base being so high for them, they absolutely need the help from the public to cover these costs.
Yeah, definitely. And I know myself, I think Limerick Animal Welfare, Marion Fitzgibbon, the chairperson up there, once told me their costs are, I think that she said 60,000 a month, which is that's what I think the figure she told me was. But I will be having someone from Limerick and Warfare actually chatting to us on our show next week. So just telling us about like what the funds that we raise will go towards, and like the same way we had with Modra and we had with Search and Rescue last week as well. So let's take another question there now. Okay, so this is one kind of like, I suppose this time of year, Tim, you have so many hazards around the house with decorations and everything. And let's see, last year my dog ate a bauble. Oh God. Luckily, it was not made of glass, but in terms of decorations, what should pet parents watch out for?
So it's very important that you prepare to make sure that you
You're breaking up a bit, Jeremy.
Back there.
Okay, I think Tim is having a couple of technical problems here. I'm gonna take a screenshot of that because it just looks a bit funny there. Tim, you're breaking up a bit on us there. Okay, I think Tim is having a few technical issues there. We'll try and get Tim back on there very quickly. Let's see. I'm just gonna
pop back there.
Lovely stuff. Good stuff. Sorry, you were breaking up a bit there, Tim. Sorry.
That's okay. But you were saying, Darren, the things that people need to be looking at, absolutely, baubles, decorations, anything that's small enough to get into a dog's mouth, they will actually try and swallow it. So be wary of where you put small little baubles around the house. That's the first thing. The second thing we see is food. Dogs will want to eat, they'll want to sniff. So invariably, they're going to try and get things down into their mouth. And the big ones to watch out for the Christmas are chocolate. Big no-no. Keep dogs away from chocolate, okay? Grapes are very dangerous as well, so keep them well away from them. Raisins, we see people like giving bits of cake and stuff like that. Raisins can be very detrimental to dogs. So my advice, just keep them away from raisins. Don't be loading them with cake because they'll ingest raisins. That's very important. Avocados are another one that dogs don't want to eat. I know some people feed them avocado. I think we mentioned this before as well, actually. But, excessive, significant amounts can do a lot of damage to dogs as well. So be very wary. Then you've got the old traditional ones. Again, like onions, mushrooms, keep them well away from them. They're not going to do them any benefits as well. So garlic, bear them in mind. I know some people aren't aware of the garlic can do them damage as well. Just bear in mind that if in doubt, keep it out is my advice to people as well.
Absolutely. And okay, we're gonna, let's see, what other questions have we there now, Tim? Right. So, okay, this is one, I suppose, related to, like, as you mentioned, vaccinations. I just got a puppy from a close family friend. He is 10 weeks old. How often should my puppy be examined by a vet, and how many vaccinations does he need per year?
Absolutely. As a puppy, he certainly will need a full course of vaccinations because that's going to protect him for the next 12 months. And it's very important as a puppy that you give him the full set of vaccinations, because if you don't, he's not covered for some very common conditions which can affect puppies. So what I would say is he's going to need 2 courses of injections as a puppy. Then every year, 12 months later, he's going to need 1 booster vaccine, essentially, is what it is. Now, we hear a lot of people in the media, anti-vaccine campaigners. It's going to be the same with COVID vaccine for humans saying don't give vaccines, but always with puppies. Okay, I know there's a cohort of people that will say don't give adult dogs, but with puppies, regardless, give it to them, because parvovirus, lepto, there's a lot of different types of influenza, even, which is like the human flu that exists, and these puppies are very naive. So two injections, at least 2 weeks apart, is what you're absolutely going to need. Then again, with puppies, you're going to need to give them a worm dose, okay? So for puppies, you're going to worm them every 2 weeks up until they're 16 weeks old. Then you can spread it out to once every 3 months. Flea treatment is the other one, where we would advise that you do them every month because fleas are very common in puppies as well. And again, doing the environment is going to be key because 95% of fleas, their larvae live around the house as opposed to on your dog. But your vet will tell you all about that when you go for the vaccinations.
Fantastic. And let's see, we have one last question there. And this is a nice little fun question and run on to Christmas. I'm trying to see, I don't see, there's no name on who sent us in, but it's actually addressed to both of us. It's Tim, Dara, what are you both looking forward to most this Christmas? You go first, Tim.
What am I most looking forward to? Well, we've got a new little baby on the way, Dara. So that's going to keep us busy. Absolutely, thank you. So that's going to keep us busy. I'm really looking forward to it as well. And I suppose what I love is just if I can get a couple of days where I just love to bring the dogs to the beach as well. You know, just letting them run around and just literally you've got a couple of days, even if it's just one day, just to be out for 7 or 8 hours. I go out for a walk, you know, and it's just endless really with them and just letting them off the lead and where they can do what they want and just run into the sea or do whatever. I just enjoy, I love seeing dogs join their natural state, which is just expressing themselves and galloping about and playing and just acting the maggot with one another, essentially, you know, that's always good to see.
Brilliant. I think for me, I'm most looking forward to about Christmas, just getting a few days to relax, a good bit of food there, and a couple of drinks as well in between, and get like yourself, get the dogs out there as well for the. Just give me a second. I'm having a few flashy problems here myself.
I think you're gone now, Dara.
Okay, I'm back with audio. Let me just check my camera.
You're back on audio, Dara. Can't see the camera.
Okay, just a sec there. Yeah, there's been a few issues with your laptop there lately now, so let me just see.
It's okay. It's Christmas time, Dara. It's okay.
Sure, don't I know it? Let's see. Okay, so let me just there and add back. Okay, hold on. I have the backup camera anyway, so that's something at least. I have the laptop camera, so that will work anyway. I need to sort out this Mac. It's causing huge problems lately. But yeah, for me, I suppose like just even like yourself, getting the dogs out for their. I always take them every Christmas morning. They always get their Christmas walk in, and we have like new collars as well for them for Christmas. Good. So and plus as well, like I love the feeling waking up on Christmas morning and like it's nearly like having kids in the house again, like having the two dogs, and they get people excited when they see their like when they see us opening up presents for them. And we're also going on the 17th of this month to a photo shoot, which is in aid of Limerick Animal Welfare. And that is Cormac Byrne here in Limerick that's actually running that. So myself, Jen, and the two dogs are going for that. And it'll be like a family portrait. And thanks again to Cormac last week. He donated a voucher for last week's raffle, €175 voucher for that. And he's donated another one for our smaller raffle, which will be happening next weekend as well. So really looking forward to that. And just like I said, a few days off work and a bit of downtime as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, let's see. Is there any? I think that was the last question. But yeah. Okay. So let's talk about what we have coming up next week then. Next week, we have our Santa Paws days on Saturday and Sunday. And we will have Santa Paws doing Zoom calls with all the various dogs, cats, all the different animals around Ireland. So if you want to get your booking in for that, you can go to christmas.thebigbark.ie. So far, we have raised over €1,500, and we're going to keep the push on for that. So if you want to continue to donate to Limerick Animal Welfare, Modra, Dogs Aid, and the Search and Rescue Dogs Association, again, go to christmas.thebigbark.ie for that. And you can also buy a personalized letter as well for your for your dog from Santa Paws as well. And on next Sunday's live show, we'll have Santa Paws himself in the house reading out Christmas letters that were sent in from dogs, dog owners, because obviously, like, it would be a bit maybe torn up or chewed up if a dog sent us into letters. But
Dogs.
all that to come next week. So it's going to be a real kind of, we're keeping the festive feel going, and we're really looking forward to that next week. Tim, who you have your Instagram live sessions every week as well? Who have you lined up coming up?
Oh, we've a couple, Darry. I won't give a couple of names. We've some dog behaviours coming up, some very interesting ones actually. With some very good questions coming in soon. I think we might have somebody from the Big Bark podcast lined up as well.
Sure, look,
coming up, Darry. So that's well we're keeping an eye out for. That's going to be very interesting. A reversal of roles, Darry. We'll see how that one works out. So that should be good. And we've got a couple more exciting ones there as well. We've got a couple of vets going to join us for some very topical issues, some things we were touched on here tonight as well. And we've got a nice little program coming up, and we enjoy it there. We try to take some information from it as well. So that's always good. Everybody can learn something. So,
and I'd highly recommend to everyone to actually, like, if you're on Instagram, it's like, I'd love to get this actually out live on Instagram, because that's where most of our own following is. But unfortunately, the setup doesn't allow it. But something we'll look into maybe for the new year as well, if we can change the setup first. But like, it's something I definitely recommend. It's tune into Pet Bond on Instagram on, is it Tuesday or Thursday night, Tim, that you're doing it currently?
Yeah, we mainly do Thursdays. Sometimes with demand, we would do a Tuesday as well. You know, we get a lot of feedback from people, and you know, a lot of people concerned about their pets that don't know where to go, and we've some great behaviours, and I know it's an area close to your heart, canine psychology as well. So we look forward to seeing you on it there as well. Absolutely, we've plans in the future there, so it's going to be interesting, you know.
Brilliant. And I know you've had Samantha Rawson on in the past, who's been on our show. You had Jim Stevens on, which not so long ago, which was a very interesting session as well. I really looked like that one, so I always try and tune in as well when I can.
They're all good, Darren. Every dog behaviourist and dog trainers, they've all seen different dogs and they've all seen different scenarios play out. And what I love is the experience. People that have been there, they've done it. You know, it's invaluable, the pearls of wisdom that these people give back to all of us and to people out there with dogs as well. You know, it's those nuggets of information that you couldn't buy in a book is what the main reason we like listening to these experts.
Brilliant. Okay, so on a closing note, what is your number one tip to anyone in the run-up to Christmas?
The main point, Ara, that I would like to make is for anybody that's thinking that it would be a great idea now to start getting a pet, hold out until the new year. Just enjoy your Christmas. Come at it with a fresh mind in the new year and then see how you feel. And for anyone that does have a pet at the moment, enjoy Christmas, keep them safe, keep them away from some of the things we mentioned earlier. And 2021 hopefully will be a better year for everyone going forward and your pets.
Dr. Tim Kirby of Petbond.ie, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Remember, next week we have Santa Paws in-house, so if you want to get your letters read out on air, get those into us on Instagram or by email, and we'll be happy to read those out. And from all of us here, we be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I think we're on TikTok somewhere as well. I'm not too sure. Must find out what I don't know how to use it, to be honest. But look, have a great week, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, Sarah.